Okay, why don't we go ahead and get started. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's event. I'm Laura Dillon from MS Dynamics World, and we're here today for a session all about why your GP upgrade should be to Dynamics 365 operations. Our presenter today is Peter Jekyll with Turn On Dynamics, and Ajaz Qureshi with Active is here with him as well. So as we get started, please know that we do welcome your questions today. You can enter them at any time during the presentation in the Q&A box on the right side of the event window. And I know that Peter and Ajaz will be leaving time at the end to answer as many of them as they can. So without any further delay, I'm going to hand things off to Peter to get us started.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you, Laura. Can you hear me well?
Yes, I can.
All right, fantastic. So I will assume everybody else can. So thanks to everybody for joining us today. What we're hoping to do today is take a business look at, replacing potentially or upgrading your GP to another Microsoft product, as opposed to getting into the weeds and doing some detailed demo, because there's always, time for that later. And I think there's an opportunity to have a much better business level discussion. So what we want to do is, we've got two presenters today. I'm going to go through much of the material and then turn it over to Ajaz for more technical questions we have during the the Q&A section. The key things that I wanted to pass along to everybody is that the two folks that are presenting today, between the two of us, we've got over 50 plus years of combined experience in this specific market, and the only good thing about that is that it's not 60 years, but we'll work on that. Both of us have been partners and director level folks at major GP and AX partners. So that's going to be an important topic that we discuss later, and we've got a full bios and resumes on our website if we want to take a look at that. If we want to take a look at that stuff in more detail. So we're going to be talking a lot about moving from GP potentially, and what the potential shortcomings are of the product for a growing business that's trying to scale. And it's important for me to throw this up front is that, I've been in the Great Plains channel, and I've been a Great Plains partner, and I've done Great Plains implementations, from day one. And to me, in its heyday, Great Plains, the partner channel was probably the biggest and best partner channel in the ERP middle market, and they were supporting what at the time was a visionary product. So I just wanted to throw that out there at the beginning, that this is not taking a look at the product as being any type of an inferior product. It's something that, that I've lived with for a long time. So why not Dynamics 365 for finance and operations as a potential upgrade for GP? Now, Dynamics 365 for finance and operations, or F&O for short, is, for a lot of folks, was formerly known as a Dynamics AX product, right? So what I think is that it's a great option for a lot of folks that are outgrowing their GP implementation, but it's overlooked a lot. And what we want to do today is we want to take a look at some of the reasons why it's overlooked potentially, why it is a good option, and how to overcome some of the potential negatives for going, from a GP to, this type of a system. So the three things that I have found in my practice of running both a GP business and an AX business is that there are not a lot of folks that are in the GP world that are taking a look at what was previously the Dynamics AX, or now the Dynamics 365 F&O. And I have found that there's three primary reasons why people aren't looking at it as much as they should from the GP side. Confusion, cost, and ironically, their GP partner. So first, let's take a look at the confusion side of the page here. Right now, Dynamics ERP in the Dynamics 365 world, there are two distinct products if you go onto their website for Dynamics 365. There's a product called Dynamics 365 for Finance and Operations, and there's a product called Dynamics 365 Business Central. As if that's not confusing enough, if you actually go out and hit the website for Dynamics 365 and open up the applications piece, this is what comes up. So if you're sitting out here in the typical ERP world and you're looking for your next ERP solution and this screen pops up at you, what exactly are you looking at, right? I can barely tell where the ERP applications are in here. So interestingly enough, you pop in here, and this piece here is the previously known as AX product, the finance and operations, and down here is the other application. So that in and of itself leads to some confusion. You have these two ERP applications, right? And you have all these other pieces in here, right? And in reality, a lot of those other pieces are actually complementary or ancillary products that will work with finance and operations or by themselves or in conjunction with, et cetera. So one of the things that in the marketplace, Microsoft has done a lot of renaming of the product, and I believe that there's a lot of confusion in the market space as far as what are the products and what do they do. So right here we've got two ERP applications under the Dynamics 365 flag, and there are going to be tons of opinions on what each one of those does and which one is better for you. The next thing that we find a lot is there is a cost stigma associated with going to something like a Dynamics 365 for finance and operations. And we're going to talk about that a bit later on our recommendations on how we cut those costs to a minimum, because the cost of enterprise level software is something that's in everybody's minds, because I think everybody that has done a significant ERP application has had a failure where things have, there's huge cost overruns, there's huge time overruns, and things aren't delivered as they wanted to be. So taking a look at, that jump from a GP mid-market product and say, oh my gosh, here's an enterprise level product that some people, equate to a Oracle or an SAP type solution, those costs are going to be prohibited from our organization. So we find that a lot of people look at that and, some of the costs that they would see in the marketplace, and, it's going to hinder them from taking a look at the product. Lastly and not leastly, if we take a look at some of the factors that I think actually inhibit GP folks, companies from taking a look at the, the Dynamics world, is actually GP partners. And I'm going to go into that in a little bit greater detail in a second. But we have a quick poll question we want to ask, is if you feel the internal strain that you might think that you need to replace or get into a new ERP solution, would you go to your existing Microsoft GP partner and say, hey, I'm outgrowing this, what do you recommend? Or would you be doing that search independent of your partner? Let's take a quick look at the partner history in the in the Microsoft world to get an idea of why I think a lot of GP customers are not getting a look at this enterprise level product from Microsoft, from the GP partner base. So if you take a look at a little bit of history of Microsoft in the ERP world, you can go back and you can find that Microsoft made two acquisitions. They made one acquisition from a US-based firm, and in that acquisition, they made one purchase, and they got the Great Plains product and the Solomon product. Great Plains at the time had purchased Solomon, and so when that purchase went through, Microsoft got both the Great Plains and the Solomon. Interestingly enough, the person that spearheaded that acquisition of the Great Plains to Microsoft has kind of parlayed that. He's now the governor of North Dakota, so that's kind of an interesting sidelight if you want to go check in on that. Now, I don't have any evidence of this, but it's my opinion that after Microsoft made that acquisition, which was a great sales job, The next morning they woke up and said, oh my God, what did we just buy? And they figured out that they needed something else. They needed to make another purchase for a more enterprise level product. And they made a purchase from a company in Europe. And through that purchase, they obtained what was at that time Exapta, or known as AX, and the Vision, or now NAV. So those are the two acquisitions that Microsoft made, and as a result, ended up with 4 ERP products in their stable. So as you move through time, the GP partners and the GP product line, actually Microsoft did a fantastic job with improving the product and making it walk and talk like a true Microsoft product. And so was a great deal of benefit to the GP product from having Microsoft own it. However, what Microsoft really did is they took the AX product and made that their flagship product, right? So what became known as AX and is now that D365 finance and operations product, that really became the flagship product, right? And so what happened is the GP folks over here that at one time were the premier product, in the mid-market and had the best implementation channel, et cetera, they kind of started feeling, there's various things that happened in the marketplace where these guys kind of started feeling like the Reddit stepchild, okay? Whereas the AX became the premier product. So what you ended up with today is you have a GP partnership. You have GP partners that as they've moved forward and added products into their product mix, instead of adding additional Microsoft products for a wide variety of reasons, difficulty, cost, but mostly I think, of how, Microsoft internally treated the different products. What the GP partners did was most of them, they started adding products like Acuity or NetSuite. And now what they're doing is they're starting to add the other D365 product, which is the Business Central product. So what you end up having here in your typical GP firm is they've kept GP, and if they've expanded, the vast majority of them have added products that are not this enterprise level product for Microsoft. So you have the Business Central here. So what that means is you end up having a situation where a lot of the partners in the GP world either are unfamiliar with what's available to them in the AX world, or they want to move people to an Acuity or a NetSuite or a product that they're familiar with, as opposed to introducing another partner, right, or introducing Microsoft into the mix to bring them into the AX, to bring them into the AX D365 world. Now, the other historical issue that we deal with from GP partners outgrowing their, partners to a large extent is that historically, the vast number of partners in the GP world came from a CPA background. And so what happened is that that entire partner space was fantastic on the financials, payables, receivables, et cetera, but as GP grew and added more functionality, for example, things like distribution and manufacturing, what ended up happening is GP had those capabilities, but a lot of the partners, they were more focused on the CPA financial side, and the growth wasn't there within the channel to address distribution and manufacturing. So you've got kind of two things going on there, right? You've got the history of the kind of the CPA background and, expanding the product and not moving the skill set along with it. And also as a, general rule, picking up products that are more like GP as opposed to that enterprise level product and moving up. So we've got another quick poll question here. If you're actively looking at a non-Microsoft product as an upgrade, why would you be looking outside of the Microsoft line? So when you have a chance to answer those questions, what we want to do is, is it time to upgrade? And we want to kind of answer, is it time to upgrade, and why do we want to upgrade, and how do we upgrade? So what we want to do is we want to kind of answer 6 classic questions, right? Who, why, what, when, where, and how. So first of all, who? Well, anyone that feels that they've outgrown, right, their GP software, or that are using it, as an engineering professor of mine used to say, suboptimally. And what I mean by that is we have run into a fair share of GP implementations that were looking for upgrades and to get out of their software, but really what they needed was the right ISV solution to kind of round out their, to round out their application, or maybe do a bit of a tweaking on their install, or maybe just have industry-specific expertise to allow them to use their software correctly. So to us, everything's not a, oh my God, you got to get out of that GP and move up to the next, best thing. But it's more of a, do you actually need to upgrade because, all the possibilities for optimizing the use of your GP, are not going to get you where you need to be, or have you truly outgrown it and need to, go to that next level? And really why it's all about scalability, right, in our world here. So from a functional standpoint, there are just things that your software is intended, that you need your software to do as a business that a mid-market package will not do, and you have to move to a higher level product such as a D365 F&O, right? So from a functional standpoint, usually you can identify those things very easily. Do you have an entire team that's doing spreadsheet stuff in addition to your, in addition to running your ERP system? Are you having trouble, with all kinds of, reporting, right, and business process flows? So anything functional, that's usually the number one thing that'll break, right? So for example, for a lot of production companies that we run into, they think that ERP stands for Excel runs production because they don't have the functional capabilities within their GP software to do all the things that they need, for example, as a manufacturer in the production side. From a technical standpoint, there's 2 critical things that are really at work here. At the time that Great Plains came to the marketplace, the tools to develop Windows-based tools did not exist, and they literally went out and wrote their own. It's called Dexterity, and Dexterity was kind of a visionary ahead of its time product, and it was a fantastic opportunity, to get to the market first with a revolutionary product. But that was many years ago, and now that product will hold you back. There are no folks out. There's no folks out in college learning Dexterity, and all the people that know Dexterity, right, are getting older. So if there's anything that you need where you truly need to get in under the hood and change fundamental business processes, my guidance here is at Great Plains and the underlying technology, this Dexterity, that's not the place you need to be. The next place is really the hosting side, right? With everybody going into the cloud and hosting these products, Microsoft obviously has done this fantastic job with taking all of their products, making them look the same, run the same, be available, to you in the cloud, and all working nicely together. Now, there are some phenomenal Great Plains partners out there that have taken Great Plains and are hosting it and are integrating it with other Microsoft products. But really, the amount of heavy lifting that they have to do behind the scenes to accomplish, those kinds of things that you can kind of get, off of the shelf with the Microsoft D365 world, it's a completely different world. And so from a technical standpoint, that dexterity underneath the hood and the ability to natively host this product, Great Plains was not built, GP is not built to be hosted, it's not built to be modified. From a business standpoint, we see a lot of folks where their bank tells them that if they can't close their books faster, they're not going to get that big loan that they're asking for, or they're not going to get their loan renewed. Or we have folks that are, in a mergers, acquisition type of mode, where, the M&A folks or the VC folks or their new partners are telling them, look, guys, we can't sell you, buy you, or you can't do anything. You can't grow as a business without having a real, ERP solution. And so you need to get off what you have now and move up to another place. So we've run into tons of opportunities, where we've seen that happen. And as we mentioned previously, there's literally the partner can stand, in your way because that partner that did a great job for you when you moved from your QuickBooks, when you moved from your QuickBooks over to, the Great Plains, the GP at the time, maybe as an organization, from a scalable, maybe not only doesn't the software scale, but perhaps the partner doesn't scale from a functional, technical, or business standpoint. And that's not unusual, right? So what I've kind of developed over the years is these little signs that tell you that, hey, I might be, be busting at the seams, and I might need to think seriously about upgrading from my GP. And so what I've come up with is a little bit of a rule of thumb called rule of multis. And the list that I'm going to show you in a second, the more rule of multis that you can check off as an organization, the better the chance is that you've outgrown your GP and need to look at, more of an enterprise type solution. So are you multi-company? So, multi-company often has to do, intercompany types of transactions from a financial standpoint or from an inventory standpoint. And while you can do some of that stuff in Great Plains, the types of transactions that need to be done on a, on a scaling business, on a growing business, you often have to, what I call torture the GP to do it. Multiple lines of business, right? The chances are that the functional footprint of the D365 product line is going to be so much bigger than the GP that if you have different lines of business, different types of business, that you won't need that ISV solution, that, that third-party add-on, that customization, et cetera, just because that functional footprint is so large on an enterprise type of package that you can get that functionality without ISV solutions, perhaps even getting another ERP solution. The next one to me, location, currency, and country, to a great degree, those are all very, intertwined, and, a lot of times location, currency, and country are the same thing. But as you grow as far as number of locations, number of warehouses, number of places where you have businesses, number of places where you're doing production, right? As you have multiple currencies, as you're in different countries, and you have different languages that you have to, be able to handle, those things, those are multi, they're significantly going to stress and at some point just leave behind your GP software. So for an example, countries, right? In countries, we talk about something called localizations, right? And basically what localizations means is that you're in a situation where you have to adhere to local tax laws, okay? Local laws, local taxes, et cetera. There was a time when your GP product had the ability to actually support multiple countries and some other languages. Microsoft took those off the table because what they wanted to do is they wanted to take the GP and move it into a more of a U.S.-based, single location type of product. And so, that's obviously something, currency, country, language, that if you have any of those issues, you have to think of, moving over. One of the other multis that I see a lot in more sophisticated scaling companies is the concept of dimensions. And dimensional software or ERP software, the two places where it raises its head the most is in dimensional inventory or dimensional financials. So let's take a look at a little example here, okay? Let's say for a second that we are, pardon me for a second. What we are doing as an organization is we are selling T-shirts. So if we're selling T-shirts, in your Great Plains or GP software, that T-shirt would be one inventory item. However, in the real world, anybody that sells T-shirts knows the following. I might sell that T-shirt with 10 different designs on the front, right? Or maybe a lot more than 10 because let's say I have a contract with the NFL and I have the different teams on the front of that T-shirt, right? But let's assume that you're selling that standard T-shirt and it has 10 different designs on the front. And then not only is that an option, right, but you also have the capability of selling that in 10 different sizes and in 10 different colors. The end result of that is in GP or Great Plains, your inventory file will have 10 times 10 times 10 or 1,000 inventory items, okay? Because you have to account for every one of those potential mix and matches of what we call style, size, and color. Now, if you take that inventory file and expand that to those 1,000 inventory items, first of all, there's the maintenance issue, but much more importantly, that has an effect on every single transaction where you then have to do sales analysis, you have to do inventory control, you have to do purchasing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, because all those different inventory items, logistically, they're really one, and they need to be able to be combined, and the ability to do that, you know, with a product like a Great Plains just doesn't exist, right? So in a product like the D365, you have dimensional inventory where you would end up with one inventory item, and those styles, size, and colors are dimensions behind it that where, you know, costs and balance, inventory balances and purchasing requirements and things of that nature, manufacturing requirements, those can all be aggregated behind the scenes. So that's my rule of multis. As I said, the more of those that you can check off, the better the chance is that you are, you know, in a position where you want to upgrade. When do you want to upgrade? Well, here's my question: is the software holding you back from expanding as a business, or are you adding, people to do tasks that the ERP software should be handling just as an aside from processing your daily transactions, right? A great ERP system, if implemented correctly, the processing of transactions on a daily basis, just the ordinary running of your business on a daily basis, what that should do is that should feed all of the information, all of the reporting, all of that information should be available to you quickly and easily so that what you can do is you can analyze where your business is, where you're making money, where you're not making money, where you need to adjust pricing, who you need to sell more to, et cetera. So the key there is most people take a look at their ERP applications, right, as a cost center, because it's not only does it cost money to hire additional people to work in the spreadsheets and the big chief tablets around their ERP solution, right, but they also, on top of that, right, it's also slowing their business down and hindering from processing transactions and growing, as fast as they want. So if you feel any of those pressures and you go out and see all these different supporting tools around your ERP situation, well, then maybe it is time, to take a serious look at this. Interesting because we talk mostly about the, we talk mostly about this being a cloud application. Microsoft, makes it very attractive from a price standpoint and from an ease of use standpoint to adopt this software in the cloud. But if for various reasons, there are management reasons or legal reasons that you have to have an on-premise solution, then this new software can be implemented on-premise so that you fully control, the location of the servers and the data, et cetera. So we can do that either way. Now, the big question is an upgrade from, from a GP to a Dynamics AX or 365 solution, that can be as traumatic as going from QuickBooks up to GP, right? There's this huge jump. And the question is, how do we do that, right? Because it's expensive, it's time-consuming, and we hear all these horror stories. And in reality, if you take a look, our guidance on how to manage this more successfully turns around these 4 ideas. The first idea is a rapid philosophy for doing an implementation, and I want to talk about that a little bit more. For us, a rapid implementation is not a marketing ploy. It's a true philosophy on how we implement. So what are we talking about? If you take a look, at that enterprise level ERP market space, the vast majority of the implementations at that market space look something like this. And what that is if the old saying is that a camel is a horse designed by a committee, okay? And not only that, but it's an ugly camel. Because what we end up having, one of the great powers of the D365 Finance and Operations software is that it's incredibly flexible and it has an incredible amount of functionality. So the typical implementation plan goes something like this. The partner will come in and get all the management team together in the organization, and they will have a big think tank session where everybody throws out their ideal scenarios for installing the ideal perfect system, right? And then they'll also throw out all the things that their system has done forever that they have to have in the new system. And then they'll throw out, all the stuff that is so unique and special for their company that they can't possibly upgrade to a new software without having that. And then it becomes a competition as far as who has the best ideas and the most ideas. And by the end of the day, you end up having a huge list that encompasses the perfect system, right? And then you turn around and you throw in the methodologies that are fairly standard in our marketplace. And so, for example, Microsoft uses something called the SureStep methodology. And if you drill behind every single one of those boxes, there's an incredible amount of activity, an incredible amount of reports, an incredible amount of tools, et cetera, that you can use to successfully implement the project, right? So here's the thing. This tool is a crutch for people that haven't done this often enough, right? And it's to avoid legal trouble, because when the project goes, south, somebody can say, well, we use the SureStep methodology, right? But the problem is what we've done here is we have wasted an incredible amount of time and effort with designing the perfect system, right? And then using what I consider to be antiquated implementation tools. So why don't we do this instead? Why don't we do the following? Let's think about 2 different ways to get to the same point, okay? I believe that ideally the first step in implementing an ERP solution is that it should initially do everything that you currently absolutely positively have to have accomplished to run your business successfully. Now, you can get to that point 1 of 2 ways. The traditional way is that first twisted, winding kind of path, and that is by designing the perfect system, spending weeks and months on designing that system, getting everybody's input, and building this grand vision of what that new application is going to be, and then spending 80% of the budget, 150% of the time, and getting to a point where everyone's exhausted, physically, emotionally, from having to go through this process, and you're barely limping along, able to do what you can in the old system. Unfortunately, with enterprise-level systems, and it's not unique to Microsoft. It happens in the SAP world. It happens in the Oracle world, is that people go through these insane implementation plans, and they, way over budget, they're way over time, and they're only getting a fraction of what they thought they were going to get. So our thought process is, let's do away with that tried and, not very true old school technology, methodology of getting things done. And let's figure out what are those key things that tomorrow you would need to run your business, right? What are those key functions? What are those key reports? What are those things? And let's stand those up as quickly as possible. So if we do that, what we've done is, instead of designing the perfect system, right, and instead of spending all the time in the design phase, and instead of doing all of this stuff, what we've done is we've got a victory because we've replaced your existing system with the new system, by being able to do all the things you need to do. But now we've spent a fraction of the time, a fraction of the budget, and what we're doing now is, because your team and your company is running the system, you're now able to look around and say, oh my gosh, here are all these other things that are available, and I will guarantee you at that point, when you have that initial stable system up and running, and at that point when you have that meeting that says, hey, what do we need to add now? That conversation will be much more enlightened, it'll be a much smaller, and it'll be a much better conversation, as opposed to designing the perfect system from scratch, and the end result will be much better. Interestingly enough, Microsoft wants to encourage folks that are in the Great Plains GP world to move on to this product. So, but they don't want to encourage them too much, because they realize that if everybody that has outgrown their GP software asked to do it tomorrow, they would be swamped, right? So in a 16-page document in some fine print somewhere, you will find out that if you're currently on maintenance for your GP software, you can get a 40% credit or discount on a new user in this new software. What's interesting about that is, if you remember previously, there are 2 ERP products under that Dynamics family right now. The Finance and Operations, which is an enterprise level platform, and then the Business Central, which is to all intents and purposes a QuickBooks replace today. This credit that Microsoft offers you almost makes the pricing between the 2 products similar, and so you can literally, with your Great Plains install, your GP install, you can literally have pricing that moves you into this new platform, similar to the cost that Microsoft would have you replace your QuickBooks at. Tools. One of the things that we've developed by successfully taking folks from GP to the Dynamics product line are some tools that allow you to do testing and training. So we have scripts, over 100 scripts that mimic basic fundamental business processes that most people have to undertake. And so what you can do is you can take those and you can lay them onto your system so that you can test and train very quickly and efficiently, once we use data tools to bring your Great Plains data into the D365 environment. The data that you find in GP is fairly common, the formats. Some of the GL structures may differ, but because we have that dimensional capability, we can fit those over into dimensions, or if you have some customizations. But the data tools to extract your data out of GP and then give it to you in a format where you can clean it so that you can start fresh, those tools are pretty nice. And then the ability to get that rapid implementation by having pre-built testing and training scripts so that you can get up and running quickly. That's a great, those are great tools that we bring to the table there. Lastly and leastly, for us, when you take a look at, if you take a look at this marketplace, you've got your GP partners on one side, and you've got your D365 or AX partners on the other side. And typically what you're going to find is your GP partners are not familiar with, don't have the capability, or don't have the willingness, as we spoke about, to take people up to that AX D365 platform. So you have the GP partners on one side. On the other side of the table, you have Microsoft pushing their AX or D365 partners to be bigger, bigger, and bigger, to be going after these, large international, multi-million-dollar deals. And so the focus for those folks is, we've got these huge staffs, we've got all these juniors that we need to trade on, and we need to go out there and put these millions and millions of dollar projects, on the table. So a GP to D365 conversion project for your typical big AX partner becomes an incredibly expensive affair if they even want to handle it, right? And the other thing is, a lot of AX partners don't have deep GP experience the same way we have. So from our standpoint, having done GP to D365 implementations in a cost-effective, rapid implementation, with only senior experienced staff, for us, I think is is critical to be able to do this quickly, efficiently, and in a manner that's cost-effective. I think I hurried through that as quick as I could. Probably could talk about 5-10 more minutes on any of those topics, but wanted to hand it over to folks that are a lot smarter than me regarding Q&A.
The first question that we had come in, and this was probably right as soon as we got started, was, what are the next steps? How do we get a demo? So I'll let you answer that, AJ.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. So definitely we can do a demo for the D365 Finance and Operations standard product. It'll probably be a half-an-hour demo where we would do an order to cash, procure to pay, and record to report, which is the GL. So those three process cycles we will be able to demo to you, and then really kind of talk to you about how some of those processes might map up to you. The best way to request a demo is to contact Peter. You'll see his email address on the screen, and I'm sure Carrie and Laura can also send that out. And then Peter will coordinate both with myself and our technical team to get that demo out to you.
Okay, and let's see, our next question is it true that Dynamics 365 Business Central doesn't support importing historical data from GP? What about D365 F&O?
So that's a great question. I am not a Business Central expert, so I won't address that comment, but I will definitely address the D365. There are some tools out there for D365 Finance and Operations that bring in data from GP into AX. However, those tools are problematic. But with our approach of the Rapid Start or Quick Start solution, we are actually taking care of all of that for you. So we're using those tools, and as we've gone through some of those implementations, we have ironed out some of those issues. That is not to say that your data may 100% not or may not 100% match up with our import tools, but that is a problem that we would address and we would resolve as part of our implementation solution to you. You're getting a fixed price simplified solution, which includes data migration from GP into AX. Some of you have been on GP, and most of the customers that I came across have been on GP for over 10 years. They've highly customized GP. So there may be instances where we run into some customized solutions out there that we would have to discuss with the customers and see how that impacts our Rapid Start, which is which we'll definitely discuss and address with you at that point.
Thank you. If I could just add one quick point. The fact that there are two D365 products and somebody asked a question about the two of them is interesting to me, because at the end of the day, the D365 Finance and Operations is the descendant of the AX, right? The Business Central product is the descendant of NAV. And if you go out and talk to AX and NAV guys back from the old day, you know, that was like the Hatfields and McCoys. They thought those are very, you know, similar products. And there was always, you know, which one is better, this back and forth. However, today, as it stands today, what you have in the, you know, what you have in that lower tier product, the Business Central product, is a subset of the functionality that NAV has. From a marketing standpoint and from somebody taking a look at that product, going from GP, moving to that product is a step back or a step sideways at best. So those are not, those two products, those two Dynamics 365 products are like night and day, and you really have to take a hard look at, you know, the two of them and how they are completely different.
Okay, let's move to the next question, and that is, our partner said D365 lacks some internal controls. Do you have any idea what he could be referring to?
So I don't know, you know, where that comment came from, because D365 is used right now, or D365 Finance and Operations, is used very extensively actually in the marketplace for mid-tier companies that are requiring SOX compliance, that are traded on SEC, and it actually has a pretty robust security features built into it. It does depend on how you configure some of your roles and your security roles and user permissions in order to get that accomplished. But it does come with a pretty robust set of tools and a security functionality that will identify and highlight for you any conflicts that you have between roles if you've assigned multiple roles. And it is used quite extensively for SOX compliance, so I'm not relating to that comment.
Okay, our next question is, are GP third-party ISVs embracing D365, creating apps for it? Macroma, Binary Stream, Rockton, Workplace, etc.
Peter, I'm going to let you answer that since you're the GP former partner. But as far as Dynamics AX goes, Dynamics has a lot of ISVs of their own. You know, so there are a lot of solutions out there that require some level of integration in order to get your solution accomplished. But I'm going to turn it over to Peter to address the GP comment.
Yeah, so that's a big thumbs up yes on a case-by-case basis. Almost all the ones that you know that you just mentioned here, this question, I believe have D365 you know, solutions, but it's really easy to find out. You know, there are definitely solutions that are tailored and built specifically for the GP world, but there are a lot of the solutions that add-on functionality, such as, you know, check printing, EDI, you know, some of those partners have really made a living by embracing multiple applications. In some cases, not only in the Microsoft world, but in the general ERP world. So I would say it sounds like most of the ones that you mentioned is a thumbs up. And generally speaking, most of the bigger partners are definitely working in both worlds. It's a challenge because it's different, you know, working in the D365 world. But, you know, that's something where most of the progressive partners that are looking to expand and keep on moving are, you know, are definitely part of that.
Okay, and I believe this will be the final question. Do you have to be upgraded to the most recent version of GP before you can convert to 365?
I think the question is, are you current on maintenance? That's the big thing for Microsoft. You know, are you sending them their check on an annual basis? As far as they're concerned, are you current? I don't think that they're very concerned on which version you're running. And I'm sure that if you're running on the initial, you know, the initial version that ran on an Abacus, and
So Peter, if I may just add in the tools that we that are out there that we're using. The tools that are out there and that we're using for data migration do rely on you being the latest version of GP, because over the years there have been upgrades, so additional fields and data fields and so on and so forth that have been added.
so I guess if that's it, I want to thank everybody for taking the chance, you know, taking the time out from their day to come in and listen to this. We'll follow up with anybody who reaches out to us and follow up on a more casual basis with everybody that does it. And, you know, thank everybody for their time and good day. And thank you, MS Dynamics for hosting us today. I appreciate it.
Yes, Peter, thank you. Peter, Ajaz, and Carrie, thank you so much for your time today, for that great information, and thanks to our attendees for their questions and their participation. We did record today's event, so we'll be making that available and sharing that with you soon. And please, as you're exiting the event today, be on the lookout for a very brief survey that will pop up. The feedback really does help us and our presenters. So I guess we'll end there. Have a great day, everyone.